Section 68. Bhima said, O Yudhishthira, gamblers have in their houses many women of loose character. They do not yet stake those women having kindness for them even, whatever wealth and other excellent articles the king of Kasi gave, whatever gems, animals, wealth, coats of mail, and weapons that other kings of the earth gave. Our kingdom, thyself and ourself, have all been won by the force. At all this my wrath was not excited, for thou art our Lord. This, however, I regard as a highly improper act. This act of staking Draupadi, this innocent girl, deserves not this treatment. Having obtained the Pandavas as her lords, it is for thee alone that she is being thus persecuted by the low, despicable, cruel, and mean-minded Kauravas. It is for her sake, O king, that my anger falleth on thee. I shall burn those hands of thine. Sahadeva, bring some fire. Arjuna, hearing this, said, Thou hast never, O Bhimasena, before this uttered such words as these. Assuredly, thy high morality hath been destroyed by these cruel foes. Thou shouldest not fulfill the wishes of the enemy. Practice thou the highest morality. Whom doth it behove to transgress his virtuous eldest brother? The king was summoned by the foe, and remembering the usage of Kshatriyas, he played at dice against his will. That is certainly conducive to our great fame. Bhima said, If I had not known, O Dhananjaya, that the king had acted according to Kshatriya usage, then I would have, taking his hands together by sheer force, burnt them in a blazing fire. Vaisampayana continued, beholding the Pandavas thus distressed and the princess of Panchala also thus afflicted, Vikarna, the son of Dhritarashtra, said, Ye kings, answer here the question that hath been asked by Yajnaseni. If we do not judge a matter referred to us, all of us will assuredly have to go to hell without delay. How is that Bhishma and Dhritarashtra, both of whom are the oldest of the Kurus, as also the high-souled Vidura, do not say anything? The son of Bharadvaja, who is the preceptor of us, also Kripa, is here. Why do not these best of regenerate ones answer the question? Yet also those other kings, assembled here from all directions, answer according to their judgment this question, leaving aside all motives of gain and anger. Ye kings, answer here the question that hath been asked by this blessed daughter of King Drupada, and declare after reflection on which side each of ye is. Thus did Vikarna repeatedly appeal to those that were in that assembly, but those kings answered him not one word, good or ill, and Vikarna, having repeatedly appealed to all the kings, began to rub his hands and sigh like a snake, and at last the prince said, Ye kings of the earth, ye Kauravas, whether ye answer this question or not, I will say what I regard as just and proper. Ye foremost of men, it hath been said that hunting, drinking, gambling, and too much enjoyment of women are the four vices of kings. The man that is addicted to these liveth forsaking virtue, and people do not regard the acts done by a person who is thus improperly engaged as of any authority. This son of Pandu, while deeply engaged in one of these vicious acts, urged thereto by deceitful gamblers, made Draupadi a stake. The innocent Draupadi is, besides, the common wife of all the sons of Pandu, and the king, having first lost himself, offered her as a stake, and Suvala himself, desirous of a stake, indeed prevailed upon the king to stake this. Krishna, reflecting upon all these circumstances, I regard Draupadi as not one. Hearing these words, a loud uproar rose from among those present in that assembly, and they all applauded Vikarna and censured the son of Suvala, and at that sound the son of Radha, deprived of his senses by anger, waving his well-shaped arms, said these words, O Vikarna, many opposite and inconsistent conditions are noticeable in this assembly, like fire produced from a faggot, consuming the faggot itself. This thy hair will consume thee. These personages here, though urged by Krishna, have not uttered a word. They all regard the daughter of Drupada to have been properly won. Thou alone, O son of Dhritarashtra, in consequence of thy immature years, art bursting with wrath. For though but a boy, thou speakest in the assembly as if thou wert old. O younger brother of Duryodhana, thou dost not know what morality truly is. For thou sayest like a fool that this Krishna, who hath been justly won, has not won at all. O son of Dhritarashtra, how dost thou regard Krishna has not won, when the eldest of the Pandavas, before this assembly, staked all his possessions? O bull of the Bharata race, Draupadi is included in all the possessions of Yudhishthira. Therefore, why regardest thou Krishna, who hath been justly won, has not won? Draupadi had been mentioned by Subala and approved of as a stake by the Pandavas. For what reason then dost thou yet regard her as not won? Or if thou thinkest that bringing her hither, attired in a single piece of cloth, is an action of impropriety, listen to certain excellent reasons I will give. O son of the Kuru race, the gods have ordained only one husband for one woman. This Draupadi, however, hath many husbands. Therefore, certain it is that she is an unchaste woman. To bring her therefore into this assembly, attired though she be in one piece of cloth, even to uncover her is not at all an act that may cause surprise. Whatever wealth the Pandavas had, she herself and these Pandavas themselves have all been justly won by the son of Suvala. O Dussasana, this Vikarna, speaking words of apparent wisdom, he is but a boy. Take off the robes of the Pandavas, as also the attire of Draupadi. Hearing these words, the Pandavas, O Bharata, took off their upper garments and throwing them down, sat in that assembly. Then Dussasana, O king, forcibly seizing Draupadi's attire before the eyes of all, began to drag it off her person. Vaisampayana continued, when the attire of Draupadi was being thus dragged, she thought of Hari, and she herself cried aloud, saying, O Govinda, O thou who dwellest in Dwaraka, O Krishna, O thou who art fond of cowherdness, of Rinadhavana, O Keshava, seest thou not that the Kauravas are humiliating me? O Lord, O husband of Lakshmi, O Lord of Raja, Rindhavana, O destroyer of all afflictions, O Janardana, rescue me, who am sinking in the Kaurava ocean. O Krishna, O Krishna, O thou great yogin, thou soul of the universe, thou creator of all things. O Govinda, save me, who am distressed, who am losing my senses in the midst of the Kurus. Thus did that afflicted lady, resplendent still in her beauty, O king, covering her face, cried aloud, thinking of Krishna, of Hari, of the Lord of the three worlds. Hearing the words of Draupadi, Krishna was deeply moved, and leaving his seat, the benevolent one from compassion arrived there on foot, and while Yajnaseni was crying aloud to Krishna, also called Vishnu and Hari and Nara for protection, the illustrious Dharma, remaining unseen, covered her with excellent clothes of many hues. And O monarch, as the attire of Draupadi was being dragged, after one was taken off, another of the same kind appeared covering her, and thus did it continue till many clothes were seen. And O exalted one, owing to the protection of Dharma, hundreds upon hundreds of robes of many hues came off Draupadi's person, and there arose then a deep uproar of many voices, and the kings present in that assembly, beholding that most extraordinary of all sights in the world, began to applaud Draupadi and censure the son of Dhritarashtra. And Bhima, then squeezing his hands with lips quivering in rage, swore in the midst of all those kings a terrible oath in a loud voice. And Bhima said, "Hear these words of mine, ye Kshatriyas of the world. Words such as these were never before uttered by other men, nor will anybody in the future ever utter them. Ye lords of earth, if having spoken these words, I do not accomplish them hereafter, let me not obtain the region of my deceased ancestors." Tearing upon in battle by sheer force the breast of this wretch, this wicked-minded scoundrel of the Bharata race, if I do not drink his life blood, let me not obtain the region of my ancestors. Vaisampayana continued, hearing these terrible words of Bhima that made the down to the auditors to stand on end. Everybody present there applauded him and censured the son of Dhritarashtra. And when a mass of cloths had been gathered in that assembly, all dragged from the person of Draupadi, Dusasana, tired and ashamed, sat down, and beholding the sons of Kunti in that state, the persons, those gods among men that were in that assembly, all uttered the word "Fie" on the son of Dhritarashtra, and the united voices of all became so loud that they made the down of anybody who heard them stand on end. And all the honest men that were in that assembly began to say, "Alas, the Kauravas answer not the question that had been put to them by Draupadi." And all censuring Dhritarashtra together made a loud clamor. Then Vidura, that master of science of morality, waving his hands and silencing everyone, spake these words, "Ye that are in this assembly, Draupadi having put her question is weeping helplessly. Ye are not answering her. Virtue and morality are being persecuted by such conduct. An afflicted person approacheth an assembly of good men like one that is being consumed by fire. They that are in the assembly quench that fire and cool him by means of truth and morality. The afflicted person asketh the assembly about his rights as sanctioned by morality. They that are in the assembly should, unmoved by interest and anger, answer the question. Ye kings, Vikarna hath answered the question according to his own knowledge and judgment. Ye should also answer it as ye think proper, knowing the rules of morality, and having attended an assembly. He that doth not answer a query that is put incurreth of the demerit that attacheth to a lie. He on the other hand, who knowing the rules of morality, and having joined an assembly, answereth falsely, assuredly incurreth the sin of a lie." The learned quote as an example in this connection the whole history of Prahallada and the son of Angirasa. There was of old a chief of the Daityas of the name Prahallada. He had a son named Virochana, and Virochana, for the sake of obtaining a bride, quarrelled with Sudanvan, the son of Angiras. It hath been heard by us that they mutually wagered their lives, saying, I am superior, for the sake of obtaining a bride. And after they had thus quarrelled with each other, they both made Prahallada the arbitrator to decide between them. And they asked him, saying, Oh, who amongst us is superior to the other? Answer this question. Speak not falsely. Frightened at this quarrel, Prahallada cast his eyes upon Sudanvan, and Sudanvan in rage, burning like unto the mace of Yama, told him, If thou answerest falsely, or dost not answer at all, thy head will then be split into 100 pieces by the wielder of the thunderbolt. With that bolt of his, thus addressed by Sudanvan, the Daitya, trembling like a leaf of a fig tree, went to Kashyapa of great energy for taking counsel with him. And Prahallada said, Thou art, O illustrious and exalted one, fully conversant with the rules of morality that should guide both the gods and the Asuras and the Brahmanas as well. Here, however, is a situation of great difficulty in respect of duty. Tell me, I ask thee, what regions are obtainable by them who, upon being asked the questions, answer it not or answer it falsely, Kashyapa thus asked answered, He that knoweth but answereth not a question from temptation, anger, or fear, casteth upon himself 1,000 nooses of Varuna, and the person who cited as a witness with respect to any matter of ocular or auricular knowledge, speaketh carelessly, casteth 1,000 nooses of Varuna upon his own person. On the completion of one full year, one such noose is loosened. Therefore, he that knoweth should speak the truth without concealment. If virtue pierced by sin repaireth to an assembly for hate, it is the duty of every body in the assembly to take off the dart, otherwise they themselves would be pierced with it. In an assembly where a truly censurable act is not rebuked of the demerit of the act attached to the head of that assembly, a fourth to the person acting censurably, and the fourth unto those others that are there. In that assembly, on the other hand, when he that deserved censure is rebuked, the head of the assembly becometh freed from all sins, and the other members also incur none. It is also the perpetrator himself of the act that becometh responsible for it. O Prahallada, they who answer falsely those that ask them about morality destroy the meritorious acts of their 7 upper and 7 lower generations. The grief of one who hath lost all his wealth, of one who hath lost a son, of one who is in debt, of one who is separated from his companions, of a woman who hath lost her husband, of one that hath lost his all in consequence of the king's demand, of a woman who is sterile, of one who hath been devoured by a tiger during his last struggles in the tiger's claws, of one who is a co-wife, and of one who hath been deprived of his property by false witnesses, have been said by the gods to be uniform in degree. These different sorts of grief are his who speaketh false. A person becometh a witness in consequence of his having seen, heard, and understood a thing. Therefore, a witness should always tell the truth. A truth-telling witness never loseth his religious merits and earthly possessions. Also, hearing these words of Kashyapa, Prahallada told his son, Sudanvan is superior to thee, as indeed his father, Angiras, is superior to me. The mother also of Sudanvan is superior to thy mother. Therefore, O Virochana, this Sudanvan is now the lord of thy life. At these words of Prahallada, Sudanvan said, Since unmoved by affection for thy child, thou hast adhered to virtue, I command, let this son of thine live for 100 years. Vidura continued, Let all the persons, therefore, present in this assembly, hearing these high truths of morality, reflect upon what should be the answer to the question asked by Draupadi. Vaisampayana continued, The kings that were there, hearing these words of Vidura, answered not a word. Yet Karna alone spoke unto Dussasana, telling him, Take away this serving woman Krishna into the inner apartments. And thereupon Dussasana began to drag before all the spectators the helpless and modest Draupadi, trembling and crying piteously unto the Pandavas, her lords. Thus ends the 68th section in the Dyuta Parva of